Hi, it's Mark Majors. Thanks to all the guests that appeared on season 2 of UX Pathways. The insights shared on the podcast shed light on core principles and the ethical considerations and challenges posed by advancing technologies. The message was clear that it's important to embrace continuous learning and experimentation in this ever changing field. But let's hear it from our guests and what they feel the future of user experience is.
The obvious answer here is like thinking about like augmented reality, virtual reality, AI, thinking about gestures and all, like this cool stuff, right? And yes, I think that's certainly going to be a place that we are headed. But I think before we really get there, I think where we're going to see changes in the more immediate is going to be designers who have traditionally been more generalists, I think are going to start to become more specialized, right? Whether it's thinking about content, copy, user research, whether it's just really digging into, data and analytics, becoming a product designer, or maybe focusing on motion, micro interaction design. I think we're going to see designers actually start to pick up a focus. And I think that is something that is starting to happen now. Maybe it's focusing on design systems, right? Like, so these types of things are starting to happen. And I think that they are going to kind of spread off and almost become disciplines within disciplines more so than they are today. And I think, so I think that kind of separation within, the craft of design is one area where I think we're going to start to see a lot of change. I think another area, and this has been the case, but again, I think because of the stuff we discussed earlier, maybe even more so, but it's really understanding like, business and how do businesses work and what are problems that businesses have to solve, and how are we able to do that in just a very quick, streamlined, efficient way for customers, right?
We have to collaborate with everybody, and that's part of the mission of World Usability Day, is that when the field was starting off, and we're only 40 years old, our field. And so it's evolving very quickly. SIGHI I was on a panel there celebrating SIGHI at 40, and they're the oldest computer human interaction. UPA, UXPA spun off of SIGHI. So I think we've gotten too splintered, and I think it's not helpful. I think that it's great that we have, IA and UX and UI, and UX is not the same as usability. And I understand all that. And I think it's necessary as we grow, and now we have CX and service design, and that's wonderful in terms of learning. But I think it's made us a little divided, and I think it's not helpful anymore. And so what I am urging is, and the reason it's still World Usability Day, and believe me, we've been petitioned by many groups, it should be World User Experience Day. And you know what? Usability is the underlying factor. Can I use it? That's what has to bring us together. And people don't understand, it's not this addition, it's not this extra thing, it's the foundation. So if I can't use it, it's useless. Everything else doesn't matter. It's the most important thing is whether it's usable. And when I say usable, I mean the 17 sustainable goals. For example, this is not usable.
Early on, UX teams of one were extremely common, and that's where you had a generalist who eventually became a senior level generalist, doing everything from research to design to selling internally. And now we're seeing more specialization, obviously. So I think we're going to continue to see a certain degree of specialization. I actually do think that there, and again, I don't want to take up too much time because this isn't a business lecture, but I do think that as we look towards the future, and it's just because I've seen this with other markets, I think that what will ultimately happen is we are going to see some low-level specializations. We're going to see those salaries go down. We're going to see the required credentials for those go down. I think that those will ultimately be offshored to low-cost providers, low-cost countries, and potentially automated. Now that ultimately, I think, leads to an overall contraction of jobs available in UX. But what will be left, I believe, is probably going to be okay for people who are at the higher end of salaries at the higher end of seniority levels.
Find a way to tie whatever you're doing to some sort of business value, because then it makes you almost indispensable. What I'm seeing now, and not just with Signet, just in talking with other people and other areas, it seems like user experience in XD is now very it's being treated as this precious thing, and it's like, oh, we have to follow this process, and we have to do this, and we have to do these steps, and we have to take 6 months, and we have to do all this stuff. And you're going to succeed in user experience if you can get outside of that world a bit and say, okay, look, I know I want to go here, but I need to be flexible and give the business something that they're asking for, something now. What can I give them now that aligns with my long-term plan, but I'm going to take incremental steps to get there.
I think that OUX, I hope, is a part of the solution to everything I was just talking about, to a part of the solution to have so much less frustration, because that's what it was for me. And I am all about, to your last point, I am all about designing within business constraints into business requirements, but we need to understand those business constraints and business requirements. And often we are not given time or space or even expectation to do so. Can you just add some UX to these screens that the PM designed? And can we have them by Friday? Right, we're going to do a first review on Friday, and you need that much time just to really understand the problem domain, understand what's actually going on. What are those business constraints? What are those technology constraints? What kind of playing field am I actually designing on? And so I wasn't really able to create the intrinsic change and the systemic change that I wanted to make in these products, because I didn't have time. You can't get into information architecture in a few days. You can rearrange the UI and throw some UX best practices on top of it.
And I found that the real difference between success and failure for those teams, more than the processes that they had, or even a lot of the cultural elements that they had in place, it came back to the skills of the leaders, and especially the ability of their leaders to build strong relationships in the organization and strong relationships within their teams. And the team leaders that could do that could hold a team together through all manner of kinds of the difficulties that we run into when it comes to making a product real. And so I realized that by trying to create more of those kinds of leaders, leaders who could build resilient teams, that could be a way that it could be a leverage point for me to help strengthen the entire field, because better leaders provide better models for the next generation of leaders to follow. Because what we have right now is a generation of leaders who have no models because no one has gone before where they are. UX is limited in its ability to be successful by the skills of the leaders who are driving it.
So having people who want to get into the UX space, they have to think about that. It's not going to go away. And where I think UX people, where it's really nice, is that they take in all this different data points to try to make an aesthetic that works well for just getting that task done. Something as simple as logging on or leaving a note, or, they seem so benign, but there's so much work that goes into make that seem so easy. And so that's always going to keep a designer there working and doing that type of work as we grow to this next level, which is, for now they're calling it Web3, but I think it is really kind of this next level of design where it's not just that you're gaining more value of your personal information that you share out there, but that you're actually having the types of products that meet how you feel about life in general. You're not just going to be using something because some brand has really done a great job with their marketing. You might want to use something because it aligns more with your personal values of how you want to engage the world in general.
I think UX is you're starting to see a lot of people go into that field of helping people manage their lives. And things like mental health, like how do we help people manage their mental health? How do we help people like find music to soothe or for sleep and for meditation and whatnot? There's lots of different ways that people are like, even so the plethora of podcasts that are starting since the pandemic has always been like, you know, everyone sharing their own experiences of their, you know, from their own niche in the world, and then how are they dealing with the pandemic and how are they dealing with all these changes. And so UX is really helping with people figure out their experience of life, I feel. And so I think when you look at customer experience design, service design, it's just giving people that framework of thinking, like, what does it mean to design in a space?
I would say understanding the core competencies that make up UX is going to be really huge. So I'm going to say, like, go pie-shaped, dig into one or two things and really get a good understanding of the breadth. The other thing is we're designing in all of these emerging technologies. So like dig into that, dig into AR and VR and AI and anything that you can dig into that's the future, autonomous vehicles, Web3, like these all sound like crazy buzzwords if you're new to the field, but at the end of the day, like we're going to be building solutions in this. So it's good to understand what they're capable of doing. Of course, we talk about ethics. We want to do the right thing. It's about being responsible. It's about putting things out there into the world that you're proud of. The other thing that's really important now, though, is understanding how businesses work. Like if I can go back and get another degree, I would get an MBA.
You know, mobile accessibility is mature, but maybe it needs to be improved. So this is the part where you're going to see like the bulk of the population has a really good mature experience. And then for us to really be useful and also, yeah, all the ethical implications that accessibility and inclusion implies. Yeah, we need to reach out to other communities where we normally haven't really find inspiration, right? It's like, hey, are your websites completely accessible? You know, can everybody use them? Is your phone powerful enough to run them? And yeah, all of those questions that sometimes are tricky to answer, but I think that's the part where most of the bulk of the work, of the heavy-handed work needs to happen, because while we have excellent access to internet to many places, some other places not that much, and some other places, yeah, they have this situation where everything they can access is not really built for them.
I think that the thing that is different is that we forget that we don't have, like, it's only our culture. So we're going to design a solution for our culture because we're linked more globally, because we can reach out and contact and connect, and not only that, manipulate. And I am not a manipulator. I do not like that side of things. But we don't think hard enough about the idea that other people approach things differently and respect that. So resist assumptions and respect other people's approaches and try to find out about them. So that's what this book and all my courses are about, is trying to respect, learning how to listen, and also learning how to find patterns so that we can start developing for certain patterns of approach or certain patterns of thinking style. And we can make that intentionally inclusive. Inclusive not only referring to physiological variety, because we are variety, not different, because different means there's one like that's the normal and the others are all different. We are a variety, and we are all beautiful in our approaches and in our thinking styles.
So as for the future, one thing is definitely, internal systems. What I really suggest to anyone, whenever you are in any kind of service situation, try to take a peek at the front office people's interfaces, what they work with. Be that at Apple when you're buying some new gadget, be that at an airport when you're being checked in, be that in a clothing store where they're checking inventory, and or in a restaurant. I think that's also a great example, because there you can easily see how they're sort of looking at the bookings and all that. And most often those interfaces are just terrible. And it's not from a graphic point of view, but it's really from a usability point of view. Now, the argument often goes that, internal, well, they learn how to do it, and then, it's okay. It basically becomes a capability of being able to use the internal tool. And I think that's just, that's just not future-proof. So I think that internal tools and being even more attention on the internal workings, the full backend, not technically, but in terms of service view, the back office activities, as well as the tools of the front office staff. I think those two layers are definitely things where there's a lot to look at.